Good evening. Hello. Hi. I'm the Maven of the Eventide. Usually I bring you vampire reviews, but tonight we are going to talk about some books. Last summer I gave you a tour of my vampire bookshelf and all the knickknacks and books that are on it, and since then I have acquired so many vampire books that I had to get another bookshelf over there. And it's almost full too. I think I'm going to need yet another bookcase soon, because people keep sending me books. And by people, I mostly mean my mom, because my mom is awesome. She's a bibliophile just like me. So now that she knows I'm collecting vampire books, she's been going to a lot of used bookstores and friends who are giving away books and got a bunch of books. Not all of these books are from my mom. Some are from other wonderful people. But now that I have all these more books, I'm going to show them all to you, and then we're going to add them to the bookshelves. So most of the top of the stack is from my mom, starting with this one, which is called Domination by Michael Sicilione. I have never heard of this book before. Maybe you are familiar with it. It says, "Welcome to the lair of the vampire. Enter at your own risk." And it has a sexy vampire lady in a very S&M-y suit on it. So I'm guessing it's a very kinky book. Thanks, Mom. It looks like this was part of a collection done by Zebra Books in the early 90s. This says, "Now there's no need to wait until dark. Day or night, Zebra's vampire novels have quite a bite." And then it gives a list of all the books in Zebra's vampire collection, all by different authors. So I guess they were starting sort of like an urban fantasy genre thing, which, you know, I love categories and lists, so interesting. Here we have a hardback of Laurel K. Hamilton's The Harlequin, one of her Anita Blake novels. I did a review last year about the first Anita Blake vampire hunter novel, Guilty Pleasures, and this looks like it's the 16th one, and I don't know about reading them out of order, so is this going to sit on my shelf until I read 15 more Anita Blake novels before I get to it? Or, you know, the name of this one, The Harlequin, comes up a lot when people talk about Anita Blake, and I can't remember the context, whether it was like, oh, that's a good one, you should definitely read The Harlequin, or, oh, that's the one where everything went really bad, don't read that one. So if you could remind me, I'd appreciate it. Either way, I love a good hardback. It's very pretty. It's going on my shelf. These are 4 of the House of Night novels. We've got Untamed, Chosen, Betrayed, and Marked by PC Cast. I have not read any of the House of Night series yet, so now I can finally get started in that. This is a young adult series that started, I think, around 2007, so, you know, riding that post-Twilight vampire boom wave before the Twilight movies came out to make Twilight super popular, but when people in the book community knew what the next hot thing was, and these got in right at the start. So I don't know if that makes them the good ones or the bad ones. People have definitely asked me about these, so now I can read them and find out. I have so many vampire books to read, so if you have an idea of which ones I should read first or a vote, let me know, and I can prioritize. Oh, also a hardback of Hunted in the same series, PC Cast House of Night. Love me a hardback. But now my editions don't match. What am I going to do? Here's some L.J. Smith, famous as author of The Vampire Diaries. This is not The Vampire Diaries. This is The Secret Circle, The Initiation, and the Captive, Part 1. And I don't think this is actually a vampire book. It's in my pile because it came with all the vampire books my mom sent, but I think this is actually a witch book, which shouldn't go on the vampire shelf. This needs to go downstairs on my other gothic accoutrement shelf. Unless there are vampires also in this, in that case it can stay up here. Let me know. Now these L.J. Smith books are definitely vampire books. This is her Night World series. And we've got 6 books in these 2 omnibuses. The Huntress, Black Dawn, Witchlight, Secret Vampire, Daughters of Darkness, and Spellbinder. More early to mid-2000s young adult vampires. I have so much young adult now. This is called The Vampire's Minion by Sylvia Beatty. And I think my mom found this at a Goodwill. It looks like a self-published novel just by the way the printing is done. Let's see. Yeah, it doesn't have a publisher on it. So I know absolutely nothing about this book. It says, Connie gets her dream job when she goes to work for a vampire. She's known all her life, but the position gives and takes more than she expects. That is not much of the back of the book blurb. You see how little it takes up. I don't know if it's romance. I don't know if it's mystery. I don't know if it's thriller. Nothing. I mean, I'll go check out the Amazon page and see if there's more information. But even the cover doesn't show me much. Has anyone heard of this before? Does anyone know what this is? And I like that it has vampire and big words on the spine. It'll look good on my shelf. It's Sherilyn Kenyon. This is a short story collection called DarkBytes. The flap says, for years, fans have been clamoring for an all-in-one collection of #1 best-selling author Sherilyn Kenyon's novellas. So, collection of Sherilyn Kenyon novellas all in one place. How convenient. Beautiful hardback. How many are in here? There's 12 stories in here, and I don't know if they're all vampire stories. I mean, to be honest, I don't know if there are any vampire stories. I only know that this book was given to me because it supposedly is a vampire book. I mean, it's definitely a vampire-ish looking hand on it. Beautiful Sherilyn Kenyon on the back. Look, it was bargain price for only $6.97. Now these I bought for myself. These, I actually funded a Kickstarter and got these books. And what they are is a comic. I first found out about it as like a web comic, but I think the web comic only existed to help launch the Kickstarter because you can read maybe about this much of it online and then the rest is all in the book. And it's called Steve Lichman, and this is just a gorgeous printing of the book. I love a beautiful hard copy. It's made by David Raposa and Daniel Warren. And the premise of this comic is that this guy, Steve, he's a lich. He lives in hell or the underworld or whatever, and he has, companions down there. And one of his companions, they're all monsters. There's like gorgons and ghouls and demons and all kinds of any kind of monster you could think of, minotaurs, all living down there in the underworld with him, going through his trials. Poor Steve. He just wants to, be okay, and people keep bugging him because he's a lich, and they keep being like, I gotta fight the lich, and he's like, all right, guess we're doing this. But one of his buddies is Dracula. So Dracula features heavily in this, so much so that Dracula is actually on the cover of book 2. And I actually missed the Kickstarter for book 1, so I had to wait until book 2 came out of Steve Lichman, and then I got the Kickstarter package with both of them. But look at how the art quality even goes up in the second book. So if you like graphic novels, if you like monster mashes, if you like Dracula being kind of like a dumbass, you get a kick out of these books. I love these. I don't know how you can get them now that the Kickstarter's over. I did the Kickstarter for these like 2 years ago, and it took a really long time to get them, but so worth the wait. I haven't actually finished reading it yet because I just got them not that long ago, and these big graphic novels. But look them up. See if you can find them online. There might be a way. Steve Lichman, volumes 1 and 2. Dracula. This is a beautiful copy of Vampire the Masquerade 5th edition, which was issued to me as a reviewer copy. They originally sent me a PDF as a reviewer copy, and I've gone through it, but I got an email from the company saying, hey, we got some hardbacks left. Would you like a hardback for when you do your review? I was, heck yeah! So they sent me this beautiful hardback. Oh, it's so gorgeous, the 5th edition. I haven't played through it yet, which is why I haven't done my review yet. Mainly because I'm lonely. I don't have that many friends. Does anyone want to play Vampire with me? There is some controversy about this edition of the game, and that is a whole conversation. Yes, I am aware of it. I've talked about it a little bit during my Let's Plays of Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines that I also put out on this channel, so you may have heard me talk about it already. But that does not change the fact that this book is just beautiful. Like the illustrations, the graphics, the layout, I love it. So as a bibliophile, I just want to rub it. Here's something fun. This is Vampire, the Terrifying Lost Journal of Dr. Cornelius Van Helsing. Not to be confused with Dr. Abraham Van Helsing. Look, it has like a holographic eye at the top. Remember holograms? This was sent to me by one of you who had it and was cleaning out your bookshelf, I believe, and you asked if I wanted it. The answer is always yes. Yes, I always want all your old vampire books that you're cleaning out in your bookshelf. But it's a children's book, sort of, and it's just got lots of fun stuff. Like this compass opens, there's pockets and things with different layouts. And I love books like this. Oh, look, it's pop-up. More holograms. So Dr. Cornelius Van Helsing, not to be confused with Abraham Van Helsing, set out to Transylvania to do some travels and found out some stuff about vampires, and he made this book as reference for Abraham. It was never my intention to get embroiled in the dangerous exploits of my brother, Abraham, but it was my fate to become an accidental vampire hunter. Warning, here lies the personal account of Dr. Van Helsing's terrifying journey to Transylvania with his assistant Gustav de Wolf, who is the actual author of this book. There, the intrepid duo hunts for the deepest, darkest evil, the undead known as vampire. With a Y, vampire with a Y. The mysteries and horrific discoveries within these pages are not for the faint of heart. Read only if you dare. And this was sent to me by the same person. It's a copy of Vampires Don't Wear Polka Dots, and it's been much loved and taped back together. I remember reading this book when I was like 8 years old, when I used to go to the library and just hang out in the library all afternoon, reading all the books on the rack for grade schoolers. Yeah, I hung out in the library. I was that kind of kid. But Vampires Don't Wear Polka Dots is one of these stories where they get like a substitute teacher and they're like, maybe she's a vampire, but she can't be a vampire because she's defying vampire stereotypes. But of course she's totally a vampire. Or is she? There's another one in this series called Phantoms Don't Drive Sports Cars that I have never read or found that I would love to have, because I also collect Phantom of the Opera books. But Vampires Don't Wear Polka Dots is one that's especially nostalgic for me. So thank you for sending this to me. I love it. It's so great to have it again. Oh, well, what's this? How did this get in my pile? Look, it's my book that I wrote that is now on my shelf because it is a vampire book, so it does belong on my shelf. The Company of Death by me is, I never thought of it as a vampire book, just a book that had vampires in it, but that's enough to qualify all the rest of the books on my shelf, so it counts. It's actually a Grim Reaper book, a Death and the Maiden book. And if you haven't heard me talk about it yet, where have you been? Have you read it yet? It's been out for a month now. The reaction to this book has actually been really great. I really appreciate all the nice things that so many of you have been saying to me. I looked at the Amazon page and I saw that it has 61 reviews so far. That's amazing. I don't know any other author personally that's gotten 61 reviews in the first month, so thank you so much. Someone told me that they asked their library to order it and their library got it in, so yes, it is possible. Someone told me that they asked their local independent bookstore to get it in, and they did, so yes, that's possible too. This is the paperback. There's also a hardback. There's also a Kindle ebook version. The ebook is exclusive to Kindle, but you can get the paperback and the hardback anywhere if you don't want to shop on Amazon. There will be an audiobook. Everyone's asking about that. Yes, it's going to take a few months just because audiobooks take longer, but it is going to happen. I went to a convention in Charlotte, North Carolina a couple weeks ago, and my publisher had brought a stack of books for me to sign and sell and, talk about, and they all sold. Every single one. And the publisher actually announced the first week it came out that this book was the best seller out of any of the books that that publisher had released so far, including the publisher's own books as an author. So thank you. because I know it was you guys buying this book, so you're awesome. Thank you so much. If you've bought it and you haven't read it yet, that's okay. It will wait. But if you do read it, please leave reviews so other people can know what you think on Amazon or Goodreads or on your blogs, or if you're a YouTuber too, BookTube this. Someone asked me permission if they could make a video about it on YouTube talking about this book. Heck yeah, make your videos. Let everyone you know about my book and all the other books that you read. Support authors, especially indie authors, but all authors, because authors are awesome and they need your support. So even if you're not blogging about my book, talk about books. That's why we're here. So I talked about this book before, Daughters of Shadow and Blood by J. Matthew Saunders, because it was on my shelf before, but now I have the sequels. So that's why these are here. But these 3 books are about Dracula's 3 brides, and it's kind of their life stories and how they each met Dracula and ended up being vampires with him. So I had read the first book for my book club, and now I've got the next 2, Daughters of Shadow and Blood, Book 2, Elena, and Book 3, Elizabeth. That's an awesome name. Of course, the author just made up the names for these brides. He called this one Elizabeth. But there are so many things connected to Dracula specifically that have to do with the name Elizabeth or a variation on it, which is why I kind of make fun of that every time it comes up being an awesome name, because my name is Elizabeth, which is what Elisa is short for, which is like Elizabeth, close, but with an S. But, you know, all the vampire things that are connected to variations on that name, pretty cool, in my opinion, if I do say so myself. But this author, J. Matthew Saunders, is actually local to me, so I met him at a local convention and I picked up his books. This is Straight Outta Fangton, a comedic vampire story, which I did not have yet the last time I talked about all the books on my bookshelves. However, I have reviewed it since then, so you probably already have heard about it if you've watched my videos. It's by author C.T. Phipps, but this copy of the book was actually sent to me by the author, not because he wanted me to review it. He was just kind enough to send it to me. And then one of my Patreon patrons requested that I review it. And they actually requested I review the audiobook, so I didn't use this paper copy. I listened to the audiobook, but it's so nice to have this one to put on my shelf. And when this author sent me this book, he also sent me The Lure of the Vampire. This is a nonfiction book that I've actually been wanting to read for a while. It's been on my vampire wish list for my vampire research. Yes, I do have an Amazon wish list specifically for vampire things. It's public if you want to look at it and get ideas for your own vampire wish list. This is called Gender, Fiction, and Fandom, From Bram Stoker to Buffy by Millie Williamson. This book explores the enduring myth of Dracula and vampires and just why it has remained so popular for so long. That doesn't sound relevant to what we discuss on vampire reviews at all. Yeah, I need to read this book. Thank you for sending it to me. I haven't read it yet, but I gotta read it soon. This is Dracula by Dacre Stoker and J.D. Barker, and Paul gave me this book for Christmas. I mentioned Dacre Stoker's other book, Dracula the Undead, back there on my shelf, which I did not love. That was the unofficial sequel to Dracula, but because he is a Stoker, he has more of a place to write a sequel to Dracula than most people probably. But this is his new book. It just came out. And the premise of this book is that Bram Stoker really met Dracula, and it's sort of like a RPF, real person fan fiction about Bram Stoker and how he came to write Dracula, which sounds interesting. I didn't love the writing style of the other book, but I think I was more frustrated with what it did with the characters, so maybe I'd like this one better. And either way, it is a very beautiful hard copy. The inside is all red. Such a pretty book. I hope it's good. A couple honorary mentions. This is Hunting Prince Dracula, which is a sequel to Stalking Jack the Ripper, which doesn't have any vampires in it, but is a gothic gas lamp, strong female character book that I'm very excited to read. This was sent to me by my pen pal. And the sequel, Hunting Prince Dracula, is the person who stalked Jack the Ripper and stopped him is now hunting Prince Dracula. I haven't read it yet, but from what I understand, It might not necessarily be an actual vampire in this book, or maybe if there is an actual vampire, that's a spoiler, but it's sort of like there's a vampire scare, and the protagonist must find the person who's causing that vampire scare, real vampire or not, and stop them. A man impaled by a sharp wooden stake. A young chambermaid drained of her blood. They say it's Prince Dracula, arisen from the dead. I say it's the living, not the dead, we should fear the most. But I love anything set in Gothy times, so I'm excited to read this, even if it is only vampire adjacent. If you've already read it and you know if there's a real vampire or not, you can tell me. It's not going to make a difference. I'm still going to read it, but I am curious. Similarly, I have Kirsten White's And I Darken, which is a gender-swapped retelling of the life of Vlad the Impaler. So if Vlad the Impaler was a girl, this is kind of his life story, her life story. And I don't think he's a vampire in this, because he wasn't. He was like an actual person who wasn't a vampire. But because it is Vlad the Impaler related, I'm mentioning it now. I'm not going to keep it on my vampire bookshelf. It'll just go on my general gothic bookshelf. But it's a beautiful book. I just love this cover. And just like last time, besides the books on my shelves, there's also stuff. And I got some new stuff. This is the Elvira Mistress of the Dark Funko cereal that has a Funko Pop inside. And yes, Elvira is not a vampire, but she's pretty much the entire inspiration for my Maven of the Eventide persona, so this belongs on my shelf. I haven't eaten any of this cereal yet, and my fledgling spawn keeps asking if he can eat it. I've been warned that it will turn my mouth green, but you know, that's okay. Maybe I'll share it with him, if he deserves it. Paul gave me this for Christmas too. I don't know if you've noticed this yet, but I got a new cape for my vampire wine bottle. This cape actually came on a bottle of vampire wine. I just thought it was too cute. Not on this bottle of vampire wine, on a different bottle of vampire wine. I've had several bottles of vampire wine. And this skull, which my mom gave me. Thanks, Mom. This is such a cute little vampire candle holder with a candle inside called Vampire Blood. This is from Bath and Body Works. And I also have the Vampire Blood hand sanitizer. So, you know, my hands can smell like vampire blood to scare people away so nobody ever talks to me. This is my favoriteest thing. I actually got this from the grocery store. It's just a little vampire plushie, but it's so soft. They also had Frankensteins and other monsters. I got this back around Halloween. Obviously, that's when they sell stuff like this at the grocery store, but I couldn't resist the vampire. I kind of wish I got the whole collection, though, so I could have a whole monster mash on my shelves. So soft. Love you, little vampire squish. A frosted glass skull candle holder that I could maybe use as a glass. You could put candles in there, you could put dip in there, you could put, you know, the blood of your enemies to drink from. My mom gave this to me. Thanks, Mom. And I know I showed you all the vampire DVDs I had on my shelf. I don't actually have that many vampire DVDs because I mostly watch things digitally, as we do in our new modern age. But when I was at my father's house around Christmas, he had these 3 Underworld DVDs that are still shrink wrapped. He hadn't even opened. I was like, hey, Dad, you're obviously not watching these. I should have them for my shelf. So now I do. I've got the Underworld Rise of the Lycans, Underworld Evolution, and the original Underworld, but it's the 2-disc unrated extended cut version. I also now have a copy of Van Helsing because someone was like, hey, Maven likes vampires. I bet she would like Van Helsing. Thanks. I'm gonna watch that real soon again. And Salem's Lot, which I have not actually watched. So I haven't read the book. I haven't watched the movie. I am entirely a noob when it comes to Salem's Lot, which is on my review list. So I'm gonna be watching it soon. And now we are all caught up on my vampire bookshelves, and these are all going to go onto the bookcases, and they're going to get full, and I'm going to have to go back to Goodwill and get another bookcase, aren't I? But that's okay. I love books. And oh, look, it's my book again. How did that get there? But seriously, you should read my book. Get your library to order it. Thank you so much to everyone who sent me books. You are amazing. I love them. Especially those of you who are not my mom, though also thank you, Mom. I am the Maven of the Eventide, and I have so many more vampire books to read now. What vampire books have you been reading? Do you have books that I don't have, that I haven't even mentioned yet? Tell me, what should I add to my vampire wish list? Which is an actual wish list. I made an Amazon storefront list with all of the vampire reference books that I've read or ones that I'm interested in reading. So all of you who've been asking me, like, where do you do your research for your vampire reviews? They're all on this Amazon storefront now, so you can find them and look them up and buy them for yourselves if you want. I put a link in the description if you're curious about that. There's also a link to where you can order my book, and also a link to my Patreon, because my Patreon patrons are what makes vampire reviews possible. If you would like to help me make more vampire reviews, please join my Patreon. $2 per video, and you get to see the video before anyone else does. Sometimes it's exclusive for a day, sometimes it's up to a week, depending on the video and the timings. So if you like my videos and you want to see them fast, join my Patreon. Otherwise, please subscribe to my channel. Let me know in the comments what vampire books you are reading and what books I should read next. Until then, good night and happy reading.